Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Hercules and the Space Gods, we explore the phenomenon of otherworldly spirit guides. And as always, we're going to start with Tim Swartz, who will give us the overview on which we will build an edifice of understanding.
Oh, whoa. Thank you. Boy, we just go right into it then, don't we, Hercules?
No pressure, Tim.
No pressure at all.
Always get to the point.
Let's see here. No, thank you, Hercules. As always, it's a great pleasure to be with everyone talking about this fascinating subject, and this has been something that has actually been a part of humanity for centuries. Um, you know, I think that most people will go as far back as Emanuel Swedenborg, who was a Swedish philosopher and scientist who suddenly found himself having dreams and visions where he was being visited by angels um, that taught him things and took him to other planets, and he developed a whole new philosophy uh, away from his original discipline, which I think was. Let me look at my notes here real quick. I got to take my glasses off because I'm far and nearsighted at the same time. Um, he had devoted himself to geometry, chemistry, and metallurgy, as well as studies of anatomy and physiology. So when he started having these visions and talking to these angels, this was a big change to him. But you'll find this throughout history and even before Swedenborg, with people who had spirit guides that started out possibly as suggesting they were what you would think of, angels, deceased loved ones, that sort of thing. But a lot of them actually revealed themselves to be extraterrestrials. Now, this was not that uncommon. Uh, you look at some of these older writings, especially starting from around the 18th century, and the focus was more on religion, Christianity, Jesus' salvation, things like that. You bring it forward a few centuries to the 20th century, and it's changed more to the Space Brothers and a more science based type of philosophy. And again, going back to starting around the 18th century, the emphasis was more on the salvation of the soul, things like that. While in modern times, with the more science-based extraterrestrial spirit guides, otherworldly spirit guides, it was more the salvation of the entire human race, trying to avoid destroying ourselves with atomic weapons, with polluting the planet, climate change, things like that. It does seem like that as time goes by and new problems crop up, then these otherworldly spirit guides take on that new guise to try to guide us away from whatever problem that we have created for ourselves. Now, you have also in the 19th century, you have people like Catherine Elise Muller, I think I'm pronouncing it, Muller, of Switzerland, who was a late 19th century spirit medium. And she started doing automatic writing, where she allegedly contacted ultra terrestrials that gave her information that later was written down in a book called From India to the Planet Mars, a study in the case of I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, somnambulism by Theodore Flournoy. Now, the spirits asserted that all physical planets in the universe were places of punishment, inhabited by souls who had lived wrongly and now had to undergo a purgatory type of existence. Now, on the other hand, there are worlds of reward, ethereal, non-physical globes of living light, and these globes were homes to the souls who had lived lives deserving of reward. And the spirits also asserted that all advanced entities in our universe were under a strict moral imperative to help all less advanced entities. So you're starting to see a combination of some of the early century spirit guides into a more modern type of philosophy. And again, this was around 1891, so we're just right there on the verge of our technological age. Which brings me to the Space Brothers and the UFO contactees of the 1950s, like George Adamski and Howard Mencher and people like that. And their contacts started out supposedly as physical. These beings would visit the contactees, come into their homes, drink coffee with them, sometimes taking them on trips, to their home planets. But this slowly also changed to a more spiritual type of communication, mind to mind, sometimes even a type of astral projection. And again, these guides were expounding the same kinds of philosophical discourse of trying to advance the spirituality of humanity with the help of a few of these earthly ambassadors. And but there were also people that never had physical contacts with UFOs, and instead it was all entirely like mediumship, automatic writing, things like that. So perhaps somewhere there is an intelligence that can see our potential as an enlightened species and has made it their mission to see if through the difficult times in our evolutionary development, I suppose, by awakening our hidden spiritual capabilities. And who knows? I mean, we may have an important role to play in the universal stage. And so, maybe UFOs and the extraterrestrials, and I'll put quotation marks around the extraterrestrials because, we don't really know what that word means. Maybe they're here to show us the hidden meaning between the lines of our lives and to guide us through those different paragraphs of our existence. And without Hercules, I'll leave it then to the next person.
And that is the next play. That is the best place to leave it. You opened up a can of worms and other things. And it's very true. Unarius, you guys are probably familiar with the Unarius people. They recently made a movie that's been making the routes of the film festivals called Welcome Space Brothers. And I've been interacting with them on and off for the past 15 years. And I've read a lot of their books. So a lot of what you described is in those books, even the transitional pieces of it. And John Keel pointed out that in Disneyland of the Gods, that these messages that we get from outer space brothers seem to be a type of theosophy, and it seems to be like playing on a record player. And that anybody who accesses certain realms of mind will tap into this theosophy or version of it, because it's remarkably consistent from the dawn of time till now. Thank you, Tim.
My pleasure.
And now we go to Michael K. Waterman, better known among those in the know as Setna of Khemet, who recently had some revelations in this area. Setna?
You're muted.
Oops. Sorry. Well, I guess you're talking about the Pleiadian that I met in 1982, whose name was Rel. I talked to Paul about that earlier in the week. Her name was Rel. That's F-V-R-E-L. That was told to me telepathically. I met her in what I'll call a cleared area where they were building in the development where my parents lived. She told me she was very tall, she had blonde hair. I told you it kind of looked up like the way Madonna had it, or Barbara Eden in I Dream of Jeannie, pulled up and there was a long ponytail coming down. And she was all silver, and so was her clothes. And she had two lights on either side of her shoulders, which I believe was helping her look for where she was going. Um, but she told me that she was not going to harm me, that she was taking plant and insect and small animal samples to check out what was going on in Florida, of all places. And she told me that she had seen me all my life. I told you on other podcasts, it was to do with a flying, looked like an upside down crystal chandelier, all these little particles, and almost like a half round disco ball shining. And it was, and the funny part was the first time I saw it, I was about 7 years old. I was looking out of my brother's window. The sun was rising, and there was this thing glittering, shining, moving, unlike anything I'd seen so far. But then I was only, what, 5 or 6, and I didn't know what to make of it. And it followed me to school. And when I saw Rel, there was a light that came. I thought it was a plane because it was a bright, bright light, but like a searchlight, you know? And I looked up, and my dog was afraid. She went behind me. And then minutes later, there was this woman coming out of this very, very tall woman coming out of the bushes or out of the palm trees and, the whatever was there. And she started to tell me that she'd always been watching out for me and that I had an energy that she knew would be something um, that would be beneficial to this planet. And I was scared to death. I thought, oh God, I'm inhaling vapors or something weird. I didn't take it seriously. The dog was frightened. Your dog is bored. Cute little thing yawning. And I left it alone. Well, a couple of days ago, I was watching one of these ancient alien things with the old Giorgio Tsoukalos, and there was this picture of a woman that was, silver in a silver outfit, very tall, and kind of like what I saw, but what I saw had a slit for nostrils and a slit for a mouth and slightly larger eyes, but they were human eyes. They weren't all black like the grays. And she was very kind to me. And I felt, there was a positive communion between us. I wasn't afraid of her. And I knew that she meant me no harm and that she was literally just checking things out. And I let it go. And a couple of days later, the light up in the sky was gone. I guess the ship took off. And that was then. And that, the whole memory came back. The other thing was I worked with a man named Dr. Ted Bennett in what we called metascience in high school. I have a trans medium guide. His name is Saransiti. He claims to be a celestial library keeper. He doesn't claim to be human, and he claims to be from another dimension. And from time to time, I work with him, and I've been working with him and the Edgar Casey Center for many years, working mostly on past life regressions. And we didn't I didn't know what was going on. I kind of astral project out, and he projects in. It's kind of like possession, I guess, in a way. Um, but he made a prediction about Dr. Ted Bennett's um, past life, whose name was Richard Blair. And the man died. He was buried in a field during World War II, and he died in 1940. Dr. Bennett was born in 42. He went and he looked the whole guy up, and there he was, buried. What was it? Not far from Calais in France, where the plane went down. And there's a marker, a gravestone with this man. He was an RAF pilot, and he was there. So there I had confirmation that what I was saying to people was true.
Did the information you were given correspond to what Tim was sharing on your mission to Earth as a representative of extraterrestrials?
She told me, Brell, that I was possibly half like what she called a walk-in.
Okay.
What she said was that Michael and Setna, the Egyptian prince, Setna Hamwest, merged somewhere along the line in some kind of a time-space tunnel. That soul is the same soul. It wasn't exactly reincarnation, more like bait and switch, I would say.
Awesome.
I think so.
That again, it deepens the mystery and adds another facet to the gem that we're examining. And now we're going to move over to T. Alan Greenfield, the one and only. Are you in the astral plane today, Alan?
I look like it, yes.
There we-
Welcome to my existence plane.
He's in the
Oh,
Elysian field.
I had so much trouble finding the link. I'm not sure if I'm on Hercules program or whether I'm speaking to you fellow Martians. Loba Carbol Huato. Whatever that means.
You do when you clean it up.
Yeah, well, that was Martian profanity. No, my way of communicating with the what we call in the occult the secret chiefs, or the masters, or the Great White Brotherhood, the term I don't like, and the ascended masters, is simply late at night, when most of the world, most of our side of the world is asleep. I will read something inspirational sitting at the keyboard, and simply let I'm reluctant to use psychic research jargon, but let's say astral spirit roam amongst those who are, I guess you could say, my betters, and simply type as I go. And then in a normal state of consciousness, and again, there's no chemical enhancement or alcohol or anything like that. I just do this in a twilight state of consciousness, which is easy for me from half a century of meditation. But I reread whatever I've typed in the light of day, so to speak. And if it seems to be valid material from other worlds, other dimensions, other states of being, it will eventually wind up in one of my books or in an essay or both. Also, the validation can come through the use of the secret cipher, the euphonauts. If there are any strange words or names like, I am Ahmed Bey, and I'm here to tell you blah, blah, blah. And if I put that through the cipher, If it is something valid, there will be an under message that is sort of the decoded version of what's being said. I think everyone here and everyone who does this sort of thing, if you get a word that is a kind of nonsense word or phrase or planetary origin or whatever, and run it through the cipher, everybody has access to that on various sites on the internet. You will, if it is valid, you will have a direct translation into what's really being said. If he says, I'm Orthon from the planet, Orthon?
Venus.
Yes, from Venus, and you decode that, and it says, Jesus from the book of Revelations, then probably it's something that is very interesting. And on the other hand, if it's just gobbledygook, if you run it once or twice or 3 times, I don't ever run anything more than 3 times, because there is a signal to noise ratio when contacting the great beyond, so to speak. Something that radio astronomers have been doing since the 1970s, which is most of what you hear from the universe is static. Now, it may be important static, including the Big Bang. That's there in the background on the old analog TVs. The snow that you saw in the background, something like 10% of it is the static from the Big Bang. But the Big Bang did happen. If it didn't, there wouldn't be anybody to watch it. So it's valid snow, but it is noise. And you have to develop a sense of signal to noise ratio. If it makes sense, it's valid. If it doesn't make sense, it's either garbled or it's from, let's say, a scrambled source that you can safely ignore. And I recommend that to everyone. Whether you're overtly hearing voices or seeing an entity or whatever, there's always a secondary level of meaning. It can be better, it can be worse, it can be useful, it can be a warning, but you have to sort of decode it to get it to make sense.
Thank you very much, sir. That was awesome. And I'm looking forward to your show debuting next Monday.
Okay. I don't know if I've heard about this, but just send me a reminder, because poor Alan, I tell you, Hercules, I lose the link in the pile. I've got mail. I save everything, but I don't organize. So I've got mail going back to the 1980s online. And I can't find anything that was longer ago than yesterday. And that doesn't require decoding. That requires a less scrambled mind than my own.
Are you talking about going all the way back to MySpace? I'm just wondering.
Oh, my MySpace, I deleted the whole thing because there was a lot of poetry to a certain young lady on there that I thought it was better simply to delete it. But yes, going back to that era, and even before I had a MySpace account, I had an AOL account, and I just save everything. And if it's something that I know how to find, it's like when we get off the air and Hercules looks into his email, he'll find several from me saying, help, I can't find the link. Help, 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 I can't find the link. And eventually, going down 40 messages, I find a link, and I hope it's the right link, because I remember that Hercules says, it's always the same. The thing is, I don't know if I can find it. So all of you may have a message saying, tell Hercules that I'm actually here, have been here for about 45 minutes, frantically trying to find something. This is the world of
We-
Alan Greenfield. Do-do-do-do.
And I will put down in the subject line, this is not space static or gobbledygook. This way you'll know that show.
How about in the space line saying, "Save this, Alan," and
Okay,
up.
we'll do that as well.
Okay.
Well, thank you. And I'm looking forward to the show, whatever it turns out to be. Now we move on to Paul Dale Roberts, who is a comic book character as well as being a paranormal researcher.
Oh yeah, and I'm loving my Paul's Pop Culture podcast. So that's a lot of fun and all things paranormal. But anyway, tonight is a very good topic because this is something I can personally talk about because I've actually interacted with my spirit guide. And it's something I don't really talk about, but I'm going to talk about it here. First off, I'm a terrible swimmer. Okay. So when it comes to the deep end, I'm like a frightened little bunny. I'm jumping out of that pool because I'm really scared of the deep end. And I almost drowned, 3 times. Once as a little child, my dad took me down to the river and he was trying to teach me how to swim. Somehow I got loose and I was going down the river. I was just like a log going down the river. And my dad, being a good swimmer, was able to go ahead and capture me and put me back on the beach. That was my first experience. Then my second experience, I was at my brother's place over in Benicia. I was with my family. I was swimming in this pool. I tried to stay where it wasn't deep. And somehow I managed to get into the deep end and I was going down for the 3rd time. My dad jumps in a full business suit to save me, and his toupee came off. That was hilarious. But he saved my butt. Well, here is where my spirit guide came in at. So I'm here at the Sacramento River. I got my family on the beach and they're playing volleyball. I'm laying on one of those plastic rafts and I'm taking in the sun. Well, here comes this speedboat zooming down the Sacramento River, causing all these waves, which causes my raft to flip over. And now I'm going into the deep end of the Sacramento River. I go all the way down. I'm touching the sand. And all of a sudden, and this is where the spirit guide comes in at, and I'll swear on a stack of Bibles, but I felt 2 hands on my chest. And it pushed me up to the beach. I mean, I could actually feel the hands. I could feel the fingers and everything right on my chest and pushes me up to the beach. And I saw my family, they're still playing volleyball. I go, hey, I almost drowned out there. And they all laugh. They go, sure, Paul. I actually did. I almost drowned, but the spirit guide that I believe that I have actually saved me.
Wow.
And another incident that happened was I was in Lake Tahoe and it was snow on the ground and everything else. And I saw this rabbit. Me being loving animals, I saw this rabbit and I didn't want to hit it. So I slammed on the brake. Cliff I went, rolling down all the way in my car. And I felt, while I was inside that car, as I was rolling down the cliff, I felt like there was cushion all around me. Like I was in Jello or something like that. I felt protected. I simply walked out of the car, not injured or anything. the police showed up and they said, what happened? How come you went over the cliff? I said, because there was a rabbit. He says, you should have ran over the rabbit. And I said, I couldn't run over the rabbit. Come on, I love rabbits. And then he says, the police officer looked at me and he goes, I'm going to tell you something. I said, what's that? And he goes, you should have been dead. I don't know how you survived that going down the cliff like that. You should have broke your neck or something. You should have been dead. And I wasn't. So I feel again, my spirit guide saved me. And then just yesterday, I had this strange gut feeling of I was supposed to go to Barnes and Noble, and I had this gut feeling that I shouldn't go, that something bad was going to happen. But I really wanted to go to Barnes and Nobles. I love the books that they got there and everything else. And if I'm lucky, I might find a Tim Short book. But anyway, so I was headed for Barnes and Nobles. I was on Sunrise Boulevard. Then all of a sudden, 7 police cars are zooming down the freeway. I'm parked over on the side. Here comes an ambulance. Here comes a fire truck. Well, somebody slammed into a car and the person is now dead. Something was telling me not to go down Sunrise Boulevard. But I didn't listen and I still went, and luckily nothing happened to me. But again, I feel like maybe a spirit guide was telling me, giving me that gut feeling not to go. So if someone asks me, Paul, do you believe in spirit guides? Oh, absolutely. Because all the things that I experience, it's something saved me. And like sometimes I'll get myself in a tight spot. And if I get myself in a tight spot, I'll do a little prayer and I say, whoever likes me up there, please get me out of this mess. Okay, I'm in this chaos here. Get me out of it. And somehow, I mean, if I'm not asking for money or anything like that, but if it's legit, it seems like the spirit guide will help me. So, and I do believe that all people have like guardian angels that are watching them. You can call them the watchers, you can call them observers, but I feel that everyone has something like this attached to them. And I believe I have a spirit guide that's attached to me.
That is awesome, and I'm glad that your spirit guide or guides are on the ball and looking out for you.
Yeah, and
a full-time job.
Yeah, I even have a spirit guide saying, "Don't be late for Hercules show," and here I am.
Thank you, spirit guide.
I think Paul needs to give his people a raise.
Yeah, I should.
Next, we're going to go to Michael Kopf.
Well, thank you again for having me on, and Paul for inviting me. And I am excited because spirit guides is something I kind of grew up with and is an interesting topic to me because guardian angels, spirit guides, ETs, all of these I've heard growing up as being, oh, they're the same thing. No, they're not the same thing. And so I've always wondered, if they're not the same thing, what's the difference? Because they all do the same thing. And so I've kind of figured out, I think it has to do with culture, where they are culturally and with religiosity. And so my personal experiences, though, I've come across my spirit guide since I was 2 and had scenarios like Paul where I'm lucky to be alive because experiences that I've had. I shouldn't be alive, but yet here I am, or at least I think I am. And so, spirit guides, though, one thing that's interesting to me that I've learned over the years through personal experiences and working with them, you have some spirit guides that'll be with you since the day you were born. You'll have some spirit guides that may be here to help you write a book. So once you write that book, that spirit guide says, "Thank you, we're done, moving on." And you get a different spirit guide that comes in to help you with the next step in your life. And so I always find it interesting when people will sit there and are like, "Oh, I'm looking at my spirit guides, but I don't recognize the spirit guide." And they start freaking out because they're like, "I lost my spirit guide." I'm like, well, first off, how do you lose a spirit guide? That seems kind of like out there in its own notion, but I get it. And we panic because they change. And part of that, I feel like the spirit guides change on us because here on the earthly realm, change is something we don't like here. We like our rhythms, our routines, our, daily rituals. And so when a change comes along, we go out of sorts for a little while till that becomes our new norm. Well, I think that's our spirit guide's way of trying to help us to go, look, change isn't always so bad. Look, we come and go. You're okay. Why can't it be that way on the earth realm? And so I feel like, there's interesting things too about that of not only being, instrument of change and guiding us through certain life journeys and experiences, but some of our spirit guides actually can be our loved ones who have transitioned on, and they take on the mantle as a spirit guide and will help guide you in this world. And so having the metaphysics that I grew up with, that's where it's like when someone that I care about passes on, I will say, yes, I'm mourning the loss of the physicality, but I'm not mourning the loss of the person. And the reason is because that person is most likely become a spirit guide now for me. So I still gonna talk with them, still gonna relate to them, and they're still around. So they're not really gone in that aspect. And I know some people not in the metaphysics has a hard time with that concept, and I get it. I understand. I'm not trying to, sway one way or another. I'm just, this is where I come from and just trying to help explain where my vision of what spirit guides are is coming from. If that, helps make sense. And spirit guides can be anything from Native American, indigenous people that have never been in your family. They can be angels, ET beings. They can be from anywhere. They're all here to guide. The only thing that I haven't heard anyone mention, but I'm going to mention because I've had this come up once. Your spirit guides, your true spirit guides, will always be there to help keep you safe and help keep you growing. When you have a spirit guide that's like going, "Oh, hey, don't do this, stay in this mode, stay, in this place because this is safety," I would start to question if that's really a spirit guide because they're not designed to limit us. They're not designed to make us do harm to anyone or to ourselves. And so I just wanted to put that out there as a thought for everyone, as we're talking about listening to our spirit guides and how they're guiding us. Make sure you listen to the right voice. And I'm going to turn it over to Sue because I know she is just chomping at the bit over there with a lot to say.
Before we get to Sue, uh, thank you very much for your information and your insights. And you're anticipating a episode that's a few episodes away. Are these spirit guides the same thing? Whatever guide they take. So you presented a foundation upon which we can build. Thank you very much.
And Hercules, I gotta say, I love the synchronicities of how you and I are in somehow in sync a lot with topics and don't even realize it.
It's a spirit guide.
The dog park.
Now,
Thank you, Michael, and thank
Sue?
you, Hercules. Thank you both. I really appreciate it. I had throughout my life, I'd had things long before I had known that there was such thing as angels or spirit guides. I didn't know what they were in my younger years, but as I was told about my stories in the beginning, that I was told by the orphanage in South Korea. They told me that I was um, left at a police station in South Korea. Now, if you were born, I guess, out of wedlock or you weren't wanted, very often you were killed. So there must have been an angel or someone out there that allowed me to live, that may have inspired my birth parents to let me live and send me to a police station. And I was found under a bench by a janitor, so maybe it's possible that an angel or a guide has came to the janitor and directed me to, I protect me and to save me from being abandoned. I feel that there is some sort of force out there that protected me from the orphanage. I was cared for the best possible. I remember eating a lot of rice. I was there till I was almost 2 before I got adopted by an American couple. And it was great at first. I guess they call it the honeymoon phase when you adopt a kid. But time went on, it was extremely abusive. And I remember I ended up in a car accident with my adopted dad. He was going down to the ramp back onto the road, and I guess he wasn't paying attention. There was a car that was coming by, and it crashed into our car, and my head hit the dashboard and left a dent. Now, back then, it was normal for a child to sit in the front seat. They didn't have all the seatbelt stuff. The seatbelt rule wasn't enforced as much, and definitely the car seat thing like it is now. And I was sitting in the front seat, and I remember my head hit the front part of the dashboard right above the glove compartment, and it left a dent there. And I was shivering, my teeth were chattering and everything. And I remember an officer asking me if I'm okay, and I should go to the hospital. And my dad, I remember he boomed out, "No, she doesn't need to go to the hospital. She's fine." And I remember someone stroking my back, and it wasn't him. And I remember something stroking my back, like trying to calm me down. It was a hand or something. And I didn't know what it was at first. I thought it was my dad at first, and I realized both of his hands were to himself when I looked over. And I remember when we got home, I was still shivering and chattering, and my neck was hurting. And I said, maybe I should go to the hospital. He said, "No, you're fine. You don't need to go." And I just felt like something hugged me and just kept stroking my back, and I could just hear some sort of voice, "You're okay. You're okay. We're gonna look after you. You're gonna get through this." And I could hear it in my head. It was like another person's voice I didn't recognize. Um, I don't know who that was. Throughout my childhood years, I would end up making decisions that were not safe. Like one time in the neighborhood, I was invited to go to somebody's house. There was a grown man, and he asked me to come into his house. And I was a little kid. I was probably 3, maybe. And I was like, okay. And I was told not to go with him. and I didn't listen. And he did some things that were not nice to me. Touched me in areas that you should never be touched. And apparently, my mother saw me walk out of his house, and I think, from what I understand, there was police there not too long after. I still didn't understand what he did, or I didn't understand what was going on back then. Um, I look back on it now. Now I understand. But I started hearing more voices as I got older, and I tried to navigate with them between listening to them and not listening to them. I saw images throughout my whole life as well. I didn't know who they were. Um, I didn't understand very much about angels and guardians. I learned them in Sunday school. I learned them in church, and I expected them to be tall, winged people that would appear in front of you and stuff. That's what I was taught. It wasn't until many years later, and even recently, I saw like a seraphim type being in my room as I woke up one morning. It was after I just had, I think, some sort of a nightmare, and it was about the things that happened in my past. I get nightmares once in a while from the rapes that I had, and as I look back on it now, the time that I was taken, I went to a nightclub when I wasn't supposed to, when I was graduating from high school, and I went with a bunch of friends because I spent a long time in my school life just studying. I didn't have any, tardy time or time with friends. I would just spend a lot of time just being a goody goody in school. And so I thought, why don't I just let loose? And so I decided to go to a nightclub, which I'm not supposed to go to, and I'm too young to be there, but I wanted to have fun, and I was invited with my friends. So they taught me how to sneak in, and I went with them, and I didn't realize it was one of those types of people that weren't very nice and very savory. And I remember being taken home by one of them, and I remember I was in some sort of a daze type feel, and that I was like cocooned, and even though the events, whatever he was doing to me, I couldn't feel any of it. It was almost like I was out of body, if you will, and he was doing whatever he wanted. Luckily, he was willing to take me home afterwards. And I actually got away from that activity, and I could have easily been killed. So I believe I have been protected all my life. Whether it was just angels or guides, I do not know, but I am always grateful for every single one of them uh, when I have ever been looked after.
Wow, that is powerful. Thank you for sharing that. That's difficult stuff to share. I'm glad that your spirit guides kept you as safe as they possibly could and got you through all those events that you experienced.
If I can add, I think one of the things that the ETs and spirit guides and angels have, one thing that we have been told. I have actually been told by uh, John D'Souza, who is where the X Files TV show was made after his files, and he talked about how we have the ETs have actually destroyed all the major nukes, the types of bombs that would destroy the Earth if everybody decided to press the red button type of bombs. We have smaller stuff, but we don't have anything big enough to destroy Earth. So if you want to talk about somebody looking out for us, that would be it.
Thank you, and hopefully in an upcoming episode we can focus on this, and I'll have you lead that discussion since you've looked into it. Wow, thank you, everybody. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I did, but did I miss anybody? No? Okay.
If you want to give your own viewpoints, Hercules.
My own viewpoints.
Yeah.
I have experienced spirit guides throughout my life, and they've gotten me out of difficult situations as well. The only thing I can point to that's like verifiable and not subjective is I had a spirit visiting me as a child. His name was George. He was a heavy-set Caucasian person who wore like one of those black American Indian hats, like the big, like 10-gallon hats with beads on them. So whenever um, this person would come and visit me, I would ask my mother to make him coffee because I like coffee. And it was one of my invisible playmates, you know, that like all kids have according to my parents. So they indulged me and made some coffee and brought it for George and so on and so forth. Years later, when I was a deep trance medium, and here is, I think that things are connected a lot more than we think they are. When we had Mark and Phyllis Brinkerhoff on the show, because Mark Brinkerhoff was a deep trance medium a few blocks from where I was a deep trance medium back in the day. He still is a medium. And a lot of the information that he was given sounds very close to the information that I was given. So there must be some connection, and it might be local. I don't know the questions that I'm researching. But anyway, when I was a deep trance medium, I found out that George Wayner was the person I was seeing as a child. So George Wayner existed. His claim to fame was he was the deep trance medium that channeled Rudolph Valentino for Natasha Rombova and their circle of people. He wrote a book called The Curious Life of Talbot Mundy. Then he and Talbot Mundy had a fight, and that was the last thing they will find together. But I found out part of his family was still alive. The way I found out that George and George Wayner were the same person was the person that was my earthly teacher here, like a physical person. They had a photo album. I was looking at it through one day, and I saw George. And said, "Hey, this is George." And she goes, "How do you know that's George?" You know, he died a long time ago. And I said, the story I just shared, that it was somebody who came over as an invisible playmate, and I remembered it. So I finally had a sister that was still alive and living in New York City. So I got an address and I went there and I knocked on the door. So when they saw me in the door, you know, I told them the story that George Wayner was my imaginary friend, and I'm now receiving instruction from one of his students. And they said, "Oh, we have something for you." So they said that George told them I'd be coming one day. And they gave me an ivory bracelet that had an Oriental zodiac on it. And they gave me a Tibetan scroll of some sort. That I don't know where it is. I know where the bracelet is. And some other things. But that showed that these spirit guides have a reality sometimes that is rooted in this world, not just something that's internal or mythic or folkloric or extraterrestrial. So that's the story I'd like to share.
You know, almost all of the guide experiences, overt ones that I've had, it's probably just me rather than discarnate beings, but the messages come through flesh and blood people who suddenly go into a kind of trance, say something to me that is relevant to me, and then go back to whatever they're doing. I mean, that would take a lot of time, but suffice to say, I think maybe my mental framework is such that a truly spiritual being I would probably have trouble communicating with, but possessing momentarily a human being, a living human being, in order to convey a message to me, that has happened to me numerous times, and the person that it comes through apparently has no idea that that even happened. So I think that that these things can manifest very differently for people according to what they're prepared to handle. One other thing, can I tell you a short short story?
Of course.
Okay. Paul, this is for you. Okay, for the 10 minutes or so that I was absent without leave at the beginning of the show, I was frantically looking for the link to get here. And I came across a link to the live version of the May 2026 program, which is 2 months ago. And I realized there was no way for me to get on the program there. And Paul was talking. And the weird thing is, and I'm quite certain that this is not a mistake, Paul was saying what he said just a few minutes ago when, it was his turn to speak on this. And I listened for about 3 minutes, and it was exactly what he said tonight. But it has to have been before the program because this is live, right? So there's no way that I could have seen him on YouTube on an old link where he was saying something that about childhood. I was able to relate to it because I had a similar incident when I was like 2 with my father in the Atlantic Ocean, and he somehow let go of my hand and I went under the water. I was too young to be afraid. So I just looked up and could see and my father, who could not swim, he was just waiting, is frantically looking for me. And he pulled me up, and I guess I picked up on his fear. I started crying. But it is a way of relating. But there's no question what I was seeing was Paul giving his talk on this subject before it happened. What to make of that? Let's just say, Hercules, you are presiding over the Twilight Zone.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
I have something to share now too, since this was shared twice. I guess I got to share it. I had an incident like that with the beach and being a baby and a toddler, I guess, and falling under the water. And so I had one of those as well, and I was saved by hands, I don't know whose, and prevented from drowning. I saw silts and drowned people and all sorts of entities while I was under the waters. But again, that's a story for another day. We've run out of time for today.
Wow.
I wish I could extend the show by another half hour at least, because everyone presented such awesome material that opened the door to many questions. But fortunately, we do this often enough where we can continue the story and pick up and get synchronicities. And Michael was talking about synchronicities. And that's since that came up a few times, I'll share this too. Most of my communication with the down happens through synchronicities and people saying things that are odd. And
me too.
The 2 examples in the show. And one of my people that gives me messages without realizing the message is a Thelomite sorcerer. This is he's always an entertaining source of information that's been given to me already a couple of times. So, all right, I guess I got to pay attention to this now rather than letting it wait on the shelf so I can get to it. I would like each of you to share how people can enter your Twilight Zones. And I'm blessed by having all of you here and sharing these discussions together. And we'll go backwards from the way we started, and we'll start with Sue. Sue, how can people find you?
I am on Facebook. You can contact me on Facebook Messenger and Sue McClure. I am on Twitter, which is known as X. I'm on Instagram. You can talk to me on both of those platforms. Otherwise, if you want to email me, go through the trouble of doing that. It is SueLightworker@gmail.com, as my name spelled SOO. And you can make even an appointment if you need some meditation work done.
And Sue will be the first guest on a new show about meditation in altered states. So that's coming up in very near.
Thank you.
Michael.
Thank you again for having me on, and thank you to Paul and Hercules and the panel. It's always an honor and privilege to be on screen with you all. I can be found on Facebook under my name. I can also be found on YouTube. Amazon is where you can find my books. And lately, if I'm not on show, you can find me on Hercules's productions. So those are the main spots to find me.
And Michael's next Hercules production, I guess, will be a show on astral projection and altered states. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Michael has a wide variety of topics he's thought deeply about and experienced. So I'm looking forward to his contribution to the astral plane topic. Thank you. Okay.
All right, Hercules. People can find me on Paul's Pop Culture Podcast. It's a new podcast that I got, and we talk about all kinds of things. And right on, Michael. And we have 3 special guests. We had Matt Marchetti and Corey Patton and their comic books. And then we had some guy named Tim Swartz.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's talking about something about persistence of ghosts. I don't know. But Michael Kopf, he's on the panel, and we had a lot of fun. Oh yeah, and then we got All Things Paranormal, and both of these shows, All Things Paranormal, Paul's Pop Culture Podcast, is a George Lucas production. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's a Hercules Invictus production. I got that. I had that wrong.
Well, thank you very much. George Lucas, I think it's a good person to be compared to and to aspire towards emulating. Thank you very much, Paul.
Okay.
Setna of Khemet.
Yes. Oh, okay. You can get me often at todayswitch.net. My number there, my email is michaelk@todayswitch.net. You can reach me at Michael K. Waterman on Facebook or Phone a Wizard. As I always say, I'm the Wizard of Phone a Wizard on Facebook. You can get me at Setna. What do you call it? Underscore Comwest on TikTok. Or you can get me on my email if you need to do email, mkwaterman@icloud.com. And that's about the best way to do it. I'm also in 2 of Tim's books, like the rest of you. I am in The Persistence of Ghosts as well as Weird Times with Tim Swartz.
Thank you very much. Setna also has a show on Hercules Productions, I guess we're calling it now. Setna Speaks.
Setna Speaks, yes. And I will speak again soon.
And he's a frequent panelist on a lot of other programs, like, for instance, Today. Thank you very much, Setna.
My pleasure, always.
Next, we go to Alan on the astral plane.
Ooh. Well, to contact me on the physical plane, all of my books are in print right now and available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and as I like to say, wherever fine books are sold. And that includes my current very small but pearls of wisdom type book called Flying Saucers and the Occult, which I understand from my new publisher is doing quite well. So you can get it either in a Kindle edition, which is inexpensive, or in a physical copy, which is better as a souvenir. I'm also daily on Facebook, Tumblr. I was on Twitter, X, for 20 some odd years, and I committed a sin. I got a new phone and my account is not recognized. So Mr. Musk created a new account, and now I'm a newbie after the 4,500 people who were on my accumulated list over a 20-year period probably think, I don't know, I was translated to the positive absolute or something. But the best way to read me is on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Amazon is the quickest. If you're just dying to get a book of mine, all you have to do is,
Thank you very much. We've done 2 specials on Alan's last book, and we're going to be doing episodes on sorcerers and saucers, and also the secret cipher. Those are the next 2 we'll be planning. And even though he doesn't remember where and what the show is about, he's going to have a show starting the last week of this month. And I'm looking forward to whatever that turns out to be.
And I'll be there if you tell me about it.
I'll send another memo out and I'll do something quirky with the title. And last but not least, the one, the only, the legendary, nay, the mythic, Tim Swartz.
Thank you, Hercules. I always have such a good time with everyone on these shows. It's such a pleasure. My new website is timrswartz.com. And thank you very much to my wife, who has been working hard to get this online for me and to keep it updated. So, for any updated information about me, just go to that website, timrswartz.com. I'm going to be one of the featured speakers at the Hopkinsville, Kentucky Goblin Con coming up at the end of August. So you can check out my website for more information on that. And our latest book, and I'll say "our" because Hercules and Paul and Setna all have chapters in this book, is called The Persistence of Ghost. And you can find it, like Alan said, the easiest way would be just to go to Amazon.com, where you can get a physical copy, an ebook, or an audio version as well. So, all of your senses can be satisfied. So, and you can also find the book, hopefully at your favorite local bookstore and library. And thank you again, everyone, for having me on this fantastic show.
Thank you for being on the show. And we're going to have another tribute to Tim Swartz in the very, very, very near future. We've had a couple already, but he is to be celebrated and appreciated. He's done so much for folks like us in keeping the torch burning that we need to draw attention to his many accomplishments. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good night, everybody, and I'm looking forward to the next time we get together to speak.
Good night, everyone.
See you soon on whatever.